Forget everything those TikTok financial gurus have been telling you while posing in front of their rented Ferraris. They tell you need $1 million to finally breathe, or that a six-figure salary is the only ticket to the success club. But they're lying. They're selling you a finish line that 99% of you will never reach because you'll be stuck, drowning in debt at the very start. There's one magic number. It's not 1 million. It's not even 100,000. It's $20,000. For some, it's the price of a used Toyota. For others, it's a year's budget for coffee and Amazon receipts. But in the world of financial psychology, it's the point of no return. It's your personal equator. Before this point, you're a statistical unit, a slave to the system, whose cortisol levels depend directly on whether the check arrives on Friday. After this point, the rules of the game change forever. Math finally shifts to your side and your brain. It finally stops operating in fight or flight mode and begins to create. Today, I'll prove to you why the first 20,000 is 100 times harder and 1,000 times more important than all your subsequent hypothetical millions. And if you understand the mechanics of this threshold, you'll stop simply hoping for a miracle. You'll start designing one. My name is Lily. I don't believe in abundance mantras. I believe in the neuroscience of scarcity and cold calculation. If you're ready to learn how the flywheel of wealth really works, stay tuned. If not, keep scrolling and feeding your illusions with the successes of others. Why exactly 20,000? Imagine pushing a huge concrete boulder up a steep hill. This is your first savings. You sweat, your muscles burn, you deny yourself every pleasure and progress. There's almost no progress. You put aside $500, don't go out with friends, choose cheap food, and end up with a measly couple of thousand in your account. At this point, 90% of people give up. They feel like their sacrifice isn't worth this meager result. The gravity of poverty pulls them back, but $20,000 is the peak of this mountain. It's the moment when the boulder stops at its peak and then begins to roll down, by itself. It's the moment when the gravity of capital kicks in. But it's not just about interest on your deposit. The real magic happens inside your head. Most of you live in what psychologists call survival mode. Did you know that, according to statistics, 40% of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense without borrowing money? That's not living. It's balancing on a precipice. When you have zero or a couple thousand in your account, every decision you make is driven by fear. You take a demeaning job because the rent won't pay itself. You tolerate an abusive boss because quitting would mean financial death for you. You're a hostage to circumstance, whose freedom ends where the next electric bill begins. Vanguard research shows that having even $2,000 as a buffer increases your subjective sense of well-being by 20%. But when that amount reaches 20,000, which for most is 6 months of living in complete autonomy, your brain makes a quantum leap. It switches from, how can I survive until the next paycheck mode to, how can I master this market? You stop being a reactive hunk of meat, dodging fate's blows. You become a proactive player. When you have 20,000, a sudden illness or car breakdown is just a minor misunderstanding, a technical glitch, not a tragedy that derails your life. You gain something the vast majority of people around you lack: mental space. And it's in this quiet, calm space, free from the din of bills, that the ideas that bring in real money are born. Now, let's put aside the sentimentality, forget the inspirational quotes, and get down to the numbers that will make your pulse quicken. We'll talk about why every dollar saved at the start is worth thousands of dollars in the end. There's a fundamental reason why saving your first $20,000 feels like climbing Everest in your shorts, while subsequent sums start to come your way with the grace of an avalanche. Welcome to the world of financial acceleration. This is the moment when quantity finally begins to transform into quality. Imagine a typical situation. You're a typical ambitious American who's decided to take control of your life. You save $1,000 a month, a significant amount that requires discipline. You invest it in a classic index fund earning 8% annually. To reach the coveted $20,000 mark, you'll need approximately 19 months, 18 months. That's 570 days during which you've skipped weekend trips, not updated your wardrobe, and perhaps driven a car older than your little brother. These 19 months are the most brutal test of your endurance. Why? Because 95% of your progress is made up of your sweat and blood. Your investments during this period earn pennies. They look like a statistical error compared to your efforts. This is where 90% of people break. They look at their account a year later, see a measly 12,000, and think, why am I suffering like this? This isn't working. I'd rather buy myself a new iPhone and fly to Mexico. They drop the boulder right before the summit. But here's where the magic begins. And it'll take your breath away if you didn't skip math in school. Your second $20,000 will take not 19 months, but just 17. Think about it. You're doing the same work. You're saving the same thousand. You haven't worked more. You haven't become a trading genius. But the waiting time has been reduced by 2 months. Why? Because now you have not only your energy, but also the top 20, who have officially taken your place. They work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without days off or lunch breaks. They generate their own money, which is added to your investments. By the time you reach your 5th or 10th 20,000, the growth rate will become simply indecent, almost frightening. You'll notice that your capital is doing more than half the work for you. This is the moment of curve intersection, when your money starts earning more than you can earn with your own time and energy. Your dollars officially become your hired hands, and unlike people, they never complain. But the real nuclear bomb is what that $20,000 does to your career and your self-esteem. In the corporate world, which I know inside and out, there's a term I love with all my heart: walking away money, or to put it bluntly, fuck you money. When you have zero or a measly couple of hundred for a rainy day, you're the perfect victim for exploitation. You're the most convenient putty for any corporate sadist. You can't ask for a raise, even if you're carrying the entire department. You can't challenge a downright idiotic management decision. You can't quit, even if the job burns out your soul and turns you into a zombie. Why? Because you're in a position of total, utter weakness. You're tied to this trough with a steel chain. And your boss, whether consciously or through subconscious predatory instincts, senses it. He sees the fear in your eyes when the topic of layoffs or overtime comes up. But when you have $20,000 sitting behind you, in the silence of your banking app, everything changes. It's not just a number. It's at least 6 months. And if you live frugally, as much as 10, of complete, absolute autonomy from any employer on the planet. It changes your biology. It changes your DNA. You begin to broadcast a completely different frequency into the world. The frequency of confidence. You're no longer afraid of losing your job because you know that if it happens, you'll still have breakfast on Monday. And next Tuesday too. And a month from now. And here's the greatest paradox of capitalism. It's precisely those employees who can afford to leave at any moment who get the juiciest projects, the highest bonuses, and the deepest respect from their colleagues. Why? Because you negotiate not from a position of, please give me this, I really need to feed my children, but from a position of strength. Here are the terms on which I'm willing to continue sharing my talent with you. Your 20,000 is your invisible Kevlar armor. It's your psychological sovereignty. It's your ability to say a firm no to what repulses you and a confident yes to opportunities that previously seemed too risky. While your colleagues spend 90% of their mental resources trying to figure out how to make it to Friday without going crazy from stress, you devote your energy to strategic planning. You seek ways to seize the best opportunities in the market because you have the cushion to take risks. Money follows money not because the universe favors the rich. The universe is indifferent. Money follows money because the owner of capital has a choice. And in our world, choice is the most valuable, the scarcest, and the most deadly asset. Those who have a choice always defeat those who don't. While your peers are buying a new Ford F-150 on credit to appear successful, you're buying yourself freedom. And believe me, the feeling of no longer belonging to that corporate vehicle gives you a much bigger dopamine rush than the smell of new leather in the car you'll be paying for the next 6 years. Listen carefully, because this is where 95% of those who reach the top 20 commit financial harakiri. When you first see $20,000 in your account, your brain, accustomed to decades of deficits, goes crazy. It whispers, "You did it! You won! You deserve a reward." At that moment, an ancient instinct awakens within you, to show the tribe that you're now the alpha. And then you're standing at the dealership, browsing the Tesla lease, or booking a villa in Bali for a month, or putting that money down as a down payment on a house you can't afford. It's called the reward trap. It's the moment when you rip a newly rooted oak sapling out of the ground just to admire its beauty. You're killing your future tree for 5 minutes of cheap dopamine. Understand one thing. These 20,000 aren't your money. They're not a means of shopping. They're seeds. If you eat them now, you'll go hungry for the rest of your life. If you leave them alone, they'll turn into a forest that will feed your grandchildren. Why should you resist the urge to look rich? Because the moment you spend your capital on liabilities, on things that depreciate and require maintenance, you voluntarily put a collar on yourself. You're back in survival mode. You're once again dependent on the next paycheck. You've traded your Kevlar vest for shiny jewelry. You're no longer a predator. You're once again food for the corporate machine. A true financial predator knows the coolest accessory in 2026 is no debt and options. When you sit in a meeting in an old t-shirt, knowing you have capital behind you that grows on its own, it gives you more power than any Rolex on a debtor's wrist. You're calm, you're not fussing, you're not trying to please, and people sense it. That's the magic of quiet wealth. You don't waste energy on the facade, you spend it on the foundation. Your action plan for the next 15 minutes. 1. Acknowledge your fragility. If you don't have 20,000, you're at risk. One unfortunate twist of fate and you're at rock bottom. Let this fear be your fuel. 2. Kill the consumer in you. Every time you want to buy something, consider the price not in dollars, but in hours of your life. How many hours at the office is this new gadget worth? Is it worth another month of being a slave? 3. Automate aggression. Set up an automatic payment to your brokerage account. Let the money go there before you even notice it. Your goal is not to save, but to attack the 20,000 threshold. $1 million is a marathon, but the first 20,000 are a sprint through barbed wire. It's painful, it requires sacrifice, and it's boring as hell. But once you get to the other side, you'll see a world inaccessible to most. A world where you don't work for money, but money works for you. Gravity is finally on your side. The boulder is rolling down. All you have to do is avoid tripping it up and trying to stop it for the next purchase. My name is Lily. I gave you the map. Now go and claim your freedom on the other side of the threshold.